There wasn't a moment where everything broke. No warning sound, no sudden collapse. One day felt like the last, but it felt exactly like the day before. You woke up, you moved through the same small motions, you ended the day the same way. Nothing looked different. That's why it worked. Most changes don't arrive loudly. They arrive quietly, disguised as normal. People often think life changes in visible steps. A decision, a turning point, a clear before and after. But most days don't carry that kind of weight. Most days are light. So light, they don't leave a mark in memory. You wake up and scroll. You wait until you feel ready to begin. You tell yourself you'll think about it later. Later becomes tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes a vague future day that never comes. Nothing dramatic happens. You still function. You still show up. You still get through the day. And because you get through the day feels harmless. You keep routines that don't demand anything from you. You return to places that don't ask you to change. You protect small comforts that make time pass quietly. There's no strong resistance. There's no open conflict. Just a low-level agreement with how things already are. People don't usually feel stuck. They feel occupied. Busy enough to delay noticing. Comfortable enough to avoid questioning. You tell yourself you're waiting for clarity, waiting for the right mood, waiting for energy that never fully arrives. So you adjust your expectations instead. You shrink plans into thoughts. You shrink thoughts into quiet acceptance. Nothing collapses. Life simply becomes easier to repeat. This pattern has a simple name: avoidance. Not the dramatic kind, not running away, the gentle kind, the kind that looks like patience, the kind that feels like being realistic. Another name fits too: comfort addiction. Not comfort as rest, comfort as a place to stay. And over time, it becomes delayed responsibility. Not refusing responsibility, just postponing it long enough that it fades into the background. These patterns don't look harmful. They look reasonable. They sound like logic. They feel like safety. That's why they last. Years pass this way, not in big leaps, in small, unremarkable days. And slowly, something changes in how time feels. Moments stop feeling distinct. Weeks blur. Months pass without leaving clear memories, not because nothing happened, but because everything happened the same way. People start to feel tired without knowing why. Not physically tired, existentially tired. They feel behind, but can't point to the exact moment they fell behind. They feel disconnected from earlier versions of themselves, not because they changed, but because they didn't. The plans they once held don't hurt anymore. They fade into background noise. Like a song you used to notice, now always playing somewhere in the distance. Nothing feels broken enough to fix. Nothing feels urgent enough to confront. So time keeps moving, while the inner life becomes quieter, not empty, muted. People don't usually notice the loss of direction. They notice the loss of sharpness, of clarity, of inner friction. Life starts to feel smooth, too smooth. Days pass without resistance, without edges, without anything that demands awareness. And when awareness fades, so does the sense of choosing. Life continues, but it feels like it's happening beside you. At some point, you may notice something simple. You didn't choose most of what stayed. It stayed because it was easy to keep. Time didn't take anything suddenly. It took it quietly, while nothing felt urgent. There was no moment to point to, no single day to blame, just a long stretch of days that felt normal. And when something feels normal for long enough, it stops asking questions. Awareness doesn't arrive as motivation. It arrives as discomfort you can't explain. Not a demand to change, just a quiet recognition that time was moving the whole time. And you were moving too, just slowly enough that it didn't feel like movement at all.